We've all worked with stubborn stakeholders, right? And it's unfortunate, but stakeholders tend to get a bad rap for a reason. Now, today, we'll hear a story about how the clustering illusion wasted a year of work and a lot of money by building things nobody wanted. So stick around, and I'll tell you all about it. What's up, UX fam? Welcome to another edition of Cognition Catalog. Every week, we'll dig into a new cognitive bias and we'll explore how that bias can impact how our teams work and what we can do to ensure that we don't get caught up in the pitfalls. Because working with people is hard, and the more insights we have into the human condition makes it just a little bit easier. To learn more about the clustering illusion, you can find more resources at cognitioncatalog.com. And smash that little bell down there to get notified when a new episode drops so you never have to worry about falling for any of these cognitive biases again. And if you want to pick up some big, beautiful art prints of some select biases, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/shop. Get free shipping on all orders over $30 and use the promo code YouTube to get 10% off your entire order. So some time ago, I worked on a team with a stakeholder who tended to be somewhat stubborn. He was a nice enough guy, but when he got something in his head, good luck convincing him of something else. Now, our team was building software with a pretty diverse user base. There were large customers with thousands of users, small customers with a few hundred users, and everything in between. Now, a large chunk of our user base was those really small customers with only a handful of users. But as is usually the case, the big name, large customers, they got direct access to high-level executives to voice whatever concerns that they had about the product. The little customers, well, not so much. And unfortunately, as we all know, the squeaky wheel tends to get the grease. But the trouble was these large, big-name customers were actually a small fraction of the total user base. But they tended to be the loudest, and they also tended to be the ones that most of the executives would listen to. Now, you can probably guess what happened next. Our stubborn stakeholder had a nice long chat with somebody from one of these large, well-known customers, and they had a feature that they wanted us to build, and they were insistent that this was business critical for them. Now, the stakeholder, armed with this information and a bit of confirmation bias, wanted to find out if the other larger, also well-known customers needed this feature too. And it turns out they did, or at least they said they did. Now, fast forward a year, and God knows how much money spent, and guess what? Only a handful of users were actually using the feature. In doing some interviews, we found that most customers had absolutely no use for this feature at all. Now, in hindsight, this stakeholder talked to only a handful of specific customers, and he heard what he wanted to hear. And in general, it wasn't a bad thing that we gave this larger customer what they wanted. It didn't kill the business, but there was certainly an opportunity cost here. What else could we have been working on that would have brought more value to the software overall? We'll never know because we didn't do the research to find out. So let's talk about the clustering illusion. What is it? The clustering illusion is a cognitive bias that occurs when we perceive patterns in random sequences of data or events, even when there's no actual correlation or causal relationship present at all. This bias reflects the human brain's tendency to seek order in randomness. Now, two important psychologists who have investigated the clustering illusion are the late Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They found that the representativeness heuristic causes the illusion. This heuristic is a cognitive shortcut where a small sample of data is assumed to be representative of the entire population that it's drawn from. Now, the human brain's ability to recognize patterns and draw conclusions is really incredible. However, remember to be cautious when using small data sets to make assumptions about larger populations. And that's because the representativeness heuristic can lead to the clustering illusion, where we mistakenly believe that a non-random pattern in a small subset of data is present throughout the entire sample. And it's important to remember that the random samples often contain more variability than we initially understand. And by acknowledging this very human tendency, we can approach data analysis with a more open mind and avoid drawing incorrect conclusions. A classic example of this bias is the belief that if a coin toss results in heads several times in a row, tails has to be next. And this is a fallacy because each coin toss is an independent event, and the odds remain 50-50 each time, no matter how many times head was tossed before. But how do we apply this to software? Now, suppose you're analyzing user data in an e-commerce platform. After observing a few customers making purchases on consecutive days, you might perceive a clustering illusion, assuming that there's a pattern or preference for online shopping on certain days of the week. But this apparent clustering might be purely coincidental, and there may be no actual preference for those specific days. Now, this bias leads us to overestimate the importance of these perceived clusters and overlook the overall randomness of the data. This can happen to us when we're the ones analyzing large data sets, but it's also essential for us to think about how we represent the data in a more objective way when we share the information with the rest of the team. Because if we're not careful, the data can ultimately be misconstrued by key team members to see what they want to see, just like in that example that I shared a few minutes ago. So how can we combat this tendency? Well, let's look at a few things that we can do. First, be cautious of pattern seeking. Recognize that our brains, the human brain, naturally seeks patterns and structure even in random data, and always validate observations with rigorous analysis before drawing conclusions, especially for important decisions where being right the first time is critical. Rely on statistical significance. Use appropriate statistical methods to determine whether observed patterns are statistically significant or simply the result of chance. If you have a data scientist on your team, for the love of God, get their help. They're on the team for a reason. Next, gather more data. It's not always the case, but the larger data set, the more reliable the analysis, especially if you have a diverse set of data like different size customers or different types of users in different geographic areas. And collecting more data may help reduce the influence of those random variations and provide a more accurate picture of what's really going on. But be careful, because sometimes gathering too much data won't really improve your analysis at all. Next, pair quant with qual data if possible. You might not always be able to do it, but when you can, complement quantitative data with qualitative insights through things like interviews, ethnography, or moderated usability studies. Try to find the why behind the what. This can help you gain a deeper insight into the overall problem. And lastly, communicate uncertainty. When we're presenting data or insights to the team, make sure to communicate the possibility of random variations and the potential for the clustering illusion. Try to avoid having your audience draw misleading conclusions if you can. Well, all right, y'all, that's it for the Cognition Catalog for today. I hope it helped to shed a little bit of light on what the clustering illusion is and how you can avoid some of these pitfalls at home and at work. But I'm curious, have you run into any issues related to the clustering illusion before? How'd you get through it? I'd love to hear about it. Let me know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. To learn more about the clustering illusion, you can find more resources at cognitioncatalog.com. Sign up for the newsletter to get a new bias in your inbox every week, and make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to worry about falling for any of these cognitive biases again. And if you think you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That would help me out so much. To learn more about the clustering illusion, you can find more resources at cognitioncatalog.com. Smash the little bell down there so you get notified when a new episode drops, so you never have to worry about falling for any of these cognitive biases again. And if you want to pick up some big, beautiful art prints with some select biases, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/shop. Get free shipping on all orders over $30 and use the promo code YouTube to get 10% off your entire order. And if you have a favorite bias that you want to see in print, let me know. I'd be happy to take requests. Help keep the show independent and ad-free. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/support to find out how. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and many others, and help keep the show independent and ad-free. And you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're released. Get instant access to those videos right now for as little as $5 a month. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer, because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all.